The phone felt heavy that day, heavier than the burden of all the years I'd spent trying to be their perfect mother and provider. I remember looking out the window of my cramped apartment. I could only see the brick wall of the building next door and knowing, deep down, that I was done being the last priority on anyone's list. I wasn't angry. Anger would have been easy. What I felt was a cold, absolute clarity. I listened to my daughter, Claire, screaming about the bank, about the money, about how I had ruined their comfortable lives. She was frantic, confused. I waited for her to run out of breath, and then I delivered my reply, slow and deliberate, a line she had taught me herself. You said I was last. You made it very clear where I stood in your world. You taught me the value of being first. Well, I paused, letting the silence stretch. I'm just listening to you now. That was the moment the old Martha disappeared, and the new one finally picked up the phone. I had done everything for them. Everything. Just a few months before that dinner, I sold the family house. The one where I had raised Claire, the one with the big kitchen and the sunny backyard. It was my last big asset, my security blanket. I took the proceeds and handed Claire and David a check for $150,000. It was their down payment for that expensive new city condo they had their hearts set on. I thought it was a gift of love. A final act of support that would guarantee my place in their lives. I thought wrong. After they moved in, I was slowly but surely edged out. Calls weren't returned. Invitations dried up. I went from being the mother to being an inconvenience. Then came the dinner at their fancy new place. I walked in, expecting maybe an apology, or at least some genuine affection. Instead, David, with Claire silently agreeing beside him, delivered a speech about boundaries and the new reality. He made it sound like I was a problem to be managed. And then Claire said it, looking me straight in the eye. Our immediate family comes first. Mom, honestly, you are secondary. In that beautiful, sun-drenched condo I helped pay for, I felt colder than I ever had in my small, damp apartment. I just smiled, repeated my line, good to know, and walked out. I didn't turn back. As I drove away, I didn't feel rage. I felt a cold, clear decision being forged inside me. I had to fight for the only person who was left to care for me, myself. When I got back to my little box of an apartment, the silence was deafening. I didn't cry. Crying was a weakness I couldn't afford anymore. I just sat there, surrounded by the beige walls and the stale air, and felt this cold, hard determination setting in. I wasn't going to let them win. Not after everything. I knew that $150,000 was gone, sunk into their condo as a gift I would never get back. But I had a feeling, a nagging discomfort, that there was more. I went to the small lockbox where I kept my important papers. The deed to the old house, the bank transfer slips, my retirement account details. I started going through everything methodically. That's when I noticed a stack of papers related to my health insurance that I had signed 2 years earlier. They had asked me to update my primary care physician forms. Nothing suspicious at the time. But tucked neatly inside those mundane medical forms, I found it, a power of attorney document. It gave Claire and David complete legal control over my finances should I become incapacitated. The worst part? My signature was there, legally notarized. They had clearly slipped this document in with the stack of healthcare papers, making me sign away my financial independence without me ever knowing the true nature of the paper. It was a calculated, insidious betrayal. My hand didn't shake when I picked up my phone. I didn't call the police immediately. I called Sophia. Sophia was a friend, a former colleague from my years working as a paralegal, now happily retired. She was sharp, meticulous, and absolutely trustworthy. She listened patiently as I laid out the whole story: the $150,000 gift, the abandonment, and now the fraudulent POA. When I emailed her the documents, she called me back within the hour, and her voice was grim. "Martha," she said, "this goes beyond a bad family dynamic. This is elder financial abuse, and it's a crime. They obtained your POA under false pretenses. And worse, I think they've already started using it. I need you to come in tomorrow. We are going to stop this cold." Her warning confirmed my worst fears and ignited a resolve in me I hadn't felt in years. They had tried to make me invisible. Now I was going to make myself unforgettable. Sophia and I met in her little home office. She had already looked at the power of attorney document I sent. She didn't mince words. "Martha, what they did is unforgivable," she said, tapping the paper. "This document is fraudulent because it was obtained by deception. You signed it thinking it was an update to your health file, not a transfer of your financial life. We can challenge this, but we need to move fast." She explained that while the $150,000 gift was legally difficult to recover, the POA was a different matter entirely. That POA gave them access to the rest of my savings, and Sophia had already discovered unauthorized withdrawals, smaller amounts, but enough to confirm their active abuse. They weren't just neglecting me. They were actively draining my future. This wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. Sophia laid out the plan, a legal counterattack that sounded like something out of a spy novel. It was brilliant because it relied on speed and surprise. She outlined 3 critical, non-negotiable steps we had to execute that very afternoon. First, we had to revoke the fraudulent POA immediately. This required a notarized, registered document that legally nullified their power over my finances from that second forward. We had to ensure the bank received this document before they had a chance to use the POA again. Second, I had to transfer every remaining cent from my current checking and savings accounts into a completely new, separate bank account at a different institution. This was my emergency fund, my last buffer, and it had to be secret. Third, once my funds were secure, we would file a comprehensive criminal complaint with the district attorney's office detailing the fraudulent POA and the unauthorized withdrawals. This would elevate the issue from a nasty family quarrel to a serious crime, elder financial abuse. Sophia looked at me over her reading glasses. "Once this complaint is filed, the consequences will be swift and public. They are counting on you being quiet and weak, Martha. Your strength now is your silence and your speed. Are you ready to do this?" I looked at the documents, at the signatures that had betrayed me. I took a deep breath. "I've never been more ready, Sophia. Let's start." Sophia and I moved through that afternoon not as 2 women, but as a single, unstoppable legal mechanism. We operated with the focused, cold precision of people who had been pushed past the point of return. Every action was calculated, every second accounted for, because we knew that time was the shield they were hiding behind. If they made one more financial move before we acted, everything could be lost. Our first stop was the notary's office. It was a sterile, impersonal room, the kind of place where dreams go to be documented, or, in my case, where betrayals go to be legally undone. When the notary slid the revocation of power of attorney document across the mahogany table, I could barely feel the rough paper. I picked up the pen. My hand, which had trembled and felt useless for weeks since Claire's cold pronouncement, was rock steady. I wasn't just signing a document that day. I was signing a declaration of independence, a formal separation from the chain of abuse. I felt the legal weight of that signature. It wasn't just nullifying a piece of paper. It was nullifying their control over my life forever. Sophia, with her keen eye for detail, made sure the required notices were immediately sent via courier and secure email to the bank's highest legal channels. Their authority over me was officially, definitively extinguished. Next, the most vital step, the money. I drove 30 minutes out of my way to a suburban bank branch where I was a complete stranger. I didn't want any familiar face, any local teller, to witness my final act of withdrawal. I sat with the bank manager, emotionless, and methodically drained my old accounts. Every remaining cent, my modest retirement savings, the small cushion left from the house sale, was transferred into a completely new account at a different institution, one so distant it felt like it existed in another country. I watched the numbers disappear from the screen, a final necessary sacrifice. To ensure absolute secrecy, I even listed Sophia's office address as my primary contact for all bank correspondence. I had built a fortress around my financial future, silent and impenetrable. That same afternoon, I took the most symbolic step of all. I called my insurance agent and formally revised my life insurance policy. For decades, Claire's name had been etched there. I removed it. In its place, I designated a charity for neglected seniors, a powerful, quiet promise to myself and to others like me. It was my final statement. My loyalty, my investment, my care was no longer for the people who abused it. I was giving back to the community that understands silent suffering. I finally returned to my cramped apartment, physically exhausted from the whirlwind of legal transactions, but mentally I felt an exhilarating rush. I had done it. I had executed the plan with flawless precision. The trap was set, silent and invisible, waiting for their next greedy move. They were counting on my silence, my emotional inertia. They expected the old, weak, sacrificing mother. But that woman had died the moment her daughter called her secondary, the woman who sat there, listening to the lonely sounds of the city, was Martha, the one who was finally, gloriously first. The quiet wait was agonizing. It was the hardest test of patience I had ever faced, a tension that settled in my joints and whispered constant doubt. I had filed the criminal complaint with the district attorney's office, a packet of documents so meticulously prepared by Sophia it was airtight, and then I just existed in my small apartment, waiting for the phone to become a ticking time bomb. I knew the moment they tried to access even a fraction of the money, the bank system would throw a fatal, undeniable flag. The call came 3 days later, late in the afternoon. It wasn't frantic, not at first. It was Claire. Her voice was tinged with irritation, annoyance, as if I were a defective appliance causing her inconvenience. "Mom, what in the world is going on with your old account? The bank is saying the POE's invalid. They won't process the transfer for David's investment fund. Can you just call them and sort it out? It has to be a mistake on their end. It's delaying everything." She spoke with a sense of entitlement so dense, so habitual, that she couldn't even fathom she was addressing the person she had betrayed. She thought I was her personal, unpaid secretary, there to manage their financial bumps. I kept my voice low, flat, almost a dead monotone. "Claire, there is no mistake. I personally and legally revoked that power of attorney days ago. You no longer have any right or any access to my funds." The line went silent. I could hear a sharp, horrified gasp. The transition from irritated entitlement to sheer naked panic was immediate and sickening. She started screaming, incoherent, hysterical, accusing me of destroying their financial future, demanding to know where the money went. The mask was obliterated. I simply repeated my statement twice more, slowly, firmly. "The money is safe. It is mine, and the POE is gone." Then, with a slow, deliberate thumb press, I ended the call. 10 minutes later, David called. He skipped the confusion and went straight to pure, calculated menace. His voice was a low, dangerous rumble. "Martha, you listen to me, and you listen well. If you do not reverse this immediately, if you derail this transfer, you will never see those grandchildren again. I mean it. Claire will cut you off completely. You will be alone for the rest of your life." That was their last weapon, their most brutal, most manipulative card, and it snapped in my hand. He thought the fear of loneliness was my greatest vulnerability. It wasn't. It was his. I listened to his bluster, his attempt to use sentimentality and fear, and I felt nothing but contempt. My voice was colder than the deepest winter ice. I spoke slowly, making sure every single word was a direct, fatal hit. "David, your threats have no power over me anymore. You are a common thief hiding behind your wife and your children's names. You chose this road the moment you deceived a 70-year-old woman to steal her security. This is no longer a conversation or a negotiation. The documents are with the district attorney. You will be hearing from them, not me. You chose this path, and I am simply and legally letting you walk it." I hung up again, and that was the last sound I ever heard from either of them. The fallout, once the criminal charges became official, was devastatingly swift. Sophia was a magnificent force. The evidence of the fraudulent POA and the unauthorized withdrawals was overwhelming and undeniable. The local papers ran a terse public story: elder abuse charges filed against prominent city couple. David was immediately publicly fired from his high-level job. Claire's name became synonymous with scandal in their pampered social circles. Suddenly, the crippling mortgage on their luxury condo became a problem they couldn't solve without my stolen money. Within weeks, I received a court notice confirming the condo was being officially listed for sale. They had staked their entire comfortable future on my weakness, and my strength, my newfound self-respect, had completely and irrevocably ruined their scheme. I felt no savage joy in their ruin, only a profound, silent vindication. I had defended myself, and in doing so, I had finally, definitively won my freedom. The formal legal process dragged on for several more months, a dry, tedious epilogue to a dramatic family tragedy. But my life had fundamentally changed the moment I pressed send on that criminal complaint. The truth, supported by Sophia's meticulous legal fortress, eventually forced a settlement. While I couldn't claw back the initial $150,000 gift, a painful loss defined by the law as an irrevocable donation, I recovered every penny of the unauthorized withdrawals. More importantly, I received a substantial portion of the proceeds from the forced sale of their condo based on the documented financial duress and fraud they had caused me. It wasn't about getting rich. It was about the profound, undeniable affirmation that what they did was wrong morally, ethically, and criminally. I used the settlement money, combined with the successful sale of my small, depressing city apartment, to orchestrate a new beginning. I left the city behind entirely, the relentless noise, the gray pollution, the constant suffocating memory of my betrayal. I drove hundreds of miles until the urban noise faded into true, cleansing silence. I settled in a quiet town nestled high in a valley, near a small, crystal-clear lake surrounded by pine forests. My new home is a modest, cozy cottage, but it possesses something priceless, a wide, sunny balcony that looks directly out onto the still water and the tall green mountains beyond. It is the absolute, serene opposite of my old view of a concrete wall and a dumpster. Here, I wake up to the gentle chirping of hummingbirds, not the shriek of sirens. I drink my coffee on the balcony, soaking in the morning sun, and for the first time in decades, a deep, honest, spiritual peace has settled into my very bones. I have started a new life, a vibrant tapestry woven entirely by and for Martha. I enrolled in a pottery studio, finding therapeutic release in the feel of the cool, wet clay under my hands, a tangible connection to creating something solid and beautiful after so much emotional wreckage. I volunteer at the local library, surrounded by the quiet hum of knowledge and good books. I've made new friends, genuine souls who see me not as a burden or a resource, but as the woman I am now, strong, independent, and resilient. I recently celebrated my 73rd birthday. My new friends, my chosen family, threw me a small, beautiful party on the lakeshore. We had rich chocolate cake, and the candles kept flickering out in the gentle breeze as we laughed and sang joyously off-key. It was a true celebration of life renewed. That night, alone on my new balcony, I looked out at the dark lake water, reflecting the cold, sharp points of the stars. I thought about the entire, grueling journey, the woman I was invisible, compliant, sacrificing her own survival for the illusion of unconditional family loyalty, and the woman I had become, visible, firm, fully present, and free. I don't have biological family nearby. I don't have grandchildren knocking on my door, and my phone no longer rings every Sunday morning with my daughter's conditional call. But I had finally earned something infinitely more valuable than their fleeting, judgmental affection. I had myself, whole, complete, and entirely mine. And in the quiet solitude of the mountains, I discovered that choosing me was not merely enough. It was everything. It was the greatest, most profound priority I ever set.